Parents and former educators are calling it the worst kept secret in Houston. Good evening, I'm Fox 26 reporter Greg Groogan, and we are talking about allegations of grade fixing aimed at the Houston Independent School District. Over the past month, the credibility of academic marks awarded on several campuses have been seriously questioned. Insiders claiming that lots of kids are being given promotions they haven't earned. Tonight, a look at those charges in a report we're calling Making the Grade. For the nation's 7th largest school district, the fundamental challenge is gargantuan. Effectively educate more than 200,000 students. About 8% of these kids are white. The rest are Hispanic, Black, or Asian. 3 out of 4 come from low-income households. Many speak English as a second language. With its annual budget topping $1.7 billion, about $8,100 per child, the Houston Independent School District says nearly 80% of students who enter high school will graduate. It was a performance good enough to help earn Houston ISD the Broad Prize for Urban Education. But with nearly half of all HISD students failing the state's benchmark reading exam, critics have questioned the legitimacy of many diplomas, given 17 high schools were graded D or F by educational advocates Children at Risk. The lingering question, how can so many students who struggle to read and write at grade level manage to pass all their coursework and walk across the stage as graduates? On April 29th, a troubling revelation offered a disturbing glimpse.
We begin this evening with an exclusive story troubling allegations at HISD's Westbury High School.
Insiders say teachers at Westbury have been ordered to change failing grades to passing ones for dozens of students.
The allegation came from a member of the Westbury faculty. So afraid of retaliation, we granted her request for anonymity.
These students didn't do the work. They did not complete the assignments. They sat and they played.
The faculty member, with 3 decades of service to the district, said children on her campus were being rewarded with passing grades for work they simply didn't do.
I knew that it was not correct and it was against the law. It is cheating. You're cheating the students out of a good education.
As evidence, the faculty member offered a grade sheet listing more than 30 students in a reading class, most of whom were failing. At the bottom of the page is a handwritten note instructing the teacher to elevate all failing grades to an 80. The note is signed by Westbury principal Jason Catchings.
I think it's all over the entire district. A lot of the teachers are being told to change those grades. Why are they changing the grades? Because they want the grades higher.
24 hours later, Fox 26 met with Paula Collins, the Westbury associate teacher who refused to change her grades and supplied the whistleblower with proof of grade fixing.
I don't give grades, you earn grades. If you want the grade changed, you need to change it yourself. I am not going to change the grade from what they earn, nor will I initial off on it that I'm making that adjustment. You get what you earned.
Collins offered detailed records of her students' daily performance. Undeniable data she shared with HISD auditors.
If I cannot put down the grade, turn in the grade, submit the grade that you actually earned, why am I there? I am not a babysitter.
Westbury teacher William Schreier confirmed the pressure to inflate grades extended well beyond a single class to the entire campus.
There's actually like a quota that you're given, no more than X, Y, or Z can have a failing grade.
Driving the grade-fixing revelations as go-between, outspoken HISD critic Gary Monroe, leader of the United Urban Alumni Association, who believes social promotion within the district has shortchanged an entire generation of Houston students.
We are demanding that the principal of this high school be removed immediately.
15 days after the scandal broke, Superintendent Terry Greer and the HISD board did just that, firing Jason Catchings for changing grades.
I think everyone involved who knew about the situation, enabled the situation, or actually perpetrated the grade changing should not be a part of our system.
Board President Rhonda Skillern-Jones went further, praising the whistleblowers responsible for proving grade inflation.
I want to commend the teacher who was courageous enough to step forward with the information and certainly the advocacy group that brought it to our attention. I think kids who are allowed to move on without actually internalizing the curriculum are set up for failure.
For his part, Catchings denied any wrongdoing, telling Fox 26 he felt the uncertified associate teacher may have been failing her students unfairly. What's more, the former Westbury principal says he sought and received clearance for his actions from superiors at HISD, a charge the district denies. Branding Catchings as a rogue, Board President Skillern-Jones and HISD administration told Fox 26 the crisis was contained and likely limited to a single campus. Activist Monroe quickly countered.
We know for a fact that it's going on at several schools.
Grade fixing within HISD, isolated mistake, or widespread practice. More disturbing allegations when we come back.
News is brought to you by Kroger, where you'll always find great food and low prices. This new segment is brought to you by Mattress Firm. If it's over 8, it's time to terminate.
Welcome back. When it became clear grade fixing had truly occurred at Westbury High School, HISD leaders predicted the scandal was restricted to a single campus. They were wrong.
In the state of Texas.
As the scandal at Westbury High claimed a principal's career and fueled community-wide concerns, new charges of cooking the grade book quickly emerged. Widespread cheating at Reagan High School was alleged in an anonymous outcry that drew a snap audit from HISD. After just a few days, the campus was cleared of any wrongdoing, leading some to question the investigation's thoroughness and the willingness of career teachers to risk retaliation.
Because there is just stark terror out there. They'll tell us that it's going on, and it's going on in multiple schools.
But on May 18th, Devlin Rogers stepped forward with her story. The 7th and 8th grade science teacher, who has served students at Pershing Middle School for 6 years, admits she ultimately succumbed to constant pressure from her principal to inflate grades.
The grades that were requested, or should I say coerced, were not what the students earned. They were not the initial grades given by myself.
Like several other HISD educators who've contacted Fox 26, Rogers claimed teachers at Pershing who refused to pass failing students or inflate marks to a higher grade face career-damaging retaliation from the school's administration. After Rogers went public, HISD auditors entered the middle school.
I am the only teacher at Pershing who's willing to speak against it. At the end of the day, if I don't stand up to protect these children against those who would mortgage their future, well, who should I expect to do it? And how else will a system change if no one stands up?
Pastor Craig Carter of Living Water Church jumped into the controversy, claiming several ethically torn educators in his congregation had confessed to folding under administrative pressure and inflating grades.
They come to me out of frustration. They come to me feeling helpless, fearful that if they say something, they could lose their job, but all along knowing if they don't say anything, the damage that is being done to our young people.
Meantime, United Urban alumni leader Gary Monroe made good on his pledge to produce more whistleblowers.
And the only way we can get this solved is to expose it. It has to be exposed. It's a cancer.
On June 1st, Madison High School associate teacher Raquel Dobbins went public, alleging that back in March, the deeply failing marks of more than a dozen of her chemistry students were secretly raised to either a 65 or 70. Dobbins says she may have never known had she not been asked to distribute report cards.
What I experienced at Madison High School is grade change and grade inflation.
As evidence, Dobbins produced copies of her official grade sheet as well as her grade book. They show students with term grades as low as 6 and 8 raised to passing territory.
If you're not coming to school and you're not doing the work, then you should not receive a passing grade. It's wrong, and it cannot continue to happen.
Amid the growing controversy, HISD's board president promised that teachers who step forward with proof of grade fixing would face no retaliation.
We as a board would never condone any action taken against an employee that reported allegations that were substantiated.
Westbury teacher William Schreier says few of his colleagues believe that offer of protection is genuine.
There's two ways to train a dog, and one is nicely and one's with a stick. And when you train a dog with a stick, they don't end up very good, and we have a lot of teachers that have been trained with a stick.
Bonnie Miller has seen too much and cares too much to be one of those teachers.
I have nothing to lose, but everything to gain if we can help the students at Westbury and the teachers.
Fully shedding her anonymity, it was this librarian who first blew the whistle on grade fixing at Westbury. June 2nd, she joined Pershing's Devlin Rogers in requesting a full criminal investigation into HISD grade fixing by the Harris County District Attorney.
What's going to happen to those students that cannot read well, that cannot comprehend well? What are they going to do? They're going to get very poor jobs. Some of them will wind up in the prison system.
It's a problem, and teachers are afraid to step up. Children are being harmed.
This is our future. We have to make a change. There's no way we can get around this.
Joining Miller and Rogers to offer prosecutors testimony and evidence was former Madison teacher Raquel Dobbins.
It's been going on for so long, and sometimes someone has to come up and just stop and say enough is enough. And I feel like we are not educating our kids and getting them ready for the society, and we are producing failures.
For the whistleblowing trio of educators, there has already been a steep price. After publicly objecting to grade pumping, all three have been ejected from their campuses by principals serving HISD Superintendent Terry Greer. Activist Gary Monroe says this battle is just beginning.
I got 21 more schools with 21 more schools worth of evidence until they understand the word systemic.
And so the question lingers, how many grade books have been cooked? How many Houston kids got both more and less than they deserved? We'll talk about it in depth when Making the Grade returns. Welcome back to Making the Grade, our coverage of grade fixing allegations within Houston ISD. Joining me now, a compelling trio of panelists: Bob Sanborn, president of Children at Risk; Devlin Rogers, a former science teacher at Pershing Middle School; and Dave DeBlasio, who is editor of Houston ISD Watch and a former administrator. I'm going to throw this question out to all three of you quickly. Do you believe there is grade fixing within Houston ISD? Bob?
I think what's happening all over the state, Greg, is there's a lot of pressure for school districts to perform. There's a lot of people looking at what's going on. The state is saying, hey, what's happening in our schools? And whenever there's that pressure to say that things are going well in public education, you have some of these things happen. You have grade inflation. You have social promotion. And I think we need to examine the larger picture. You know, instead of looking at social promotion that's happening in the high schools, why aren't we looking at the earlier grades when social promotion is easier on kids? I mean, not social promotion, but actually failing kids and keeping them behind. It'd be easier to do that earlier on than doing it later. So I think absolutely it's happening, and now we're seeing it in HISD.
Devlin, you've been in the trenches. Have you seen grade inflation? I know that you have recently gone public and said you were pressured to change grades.
I have personal knowledge, yes, and since I've become public, I have had other teachers at Pershing Middle School as well as other schools confide in me. So yes, definitely.
Dave, Houston ISD Watch is a place where people who have big problems with HISD tend to congregate. What have you heard about grade inflation?
I've heard that it's skyrocketed under the Greer administration. The pressure for quick fixes, the pressure to make stats look favorable to Terry Greer and the school board it's accelerated. grade changing has always been an issue, but never to the extent that it is now. I hear from various schools, some of which you've investigated, the Urban has investigated, and there are more cases out there. Teachers have to overcome their fear of reporting. Administrators should never, never be telling teachers to change grades. It's against the law.
Devlin, we hear that administrators actually pressure or lobby teachers to raise their grades, to give kids grades that they haven't earned. How does that happen? What's your experience?
My experience is you're called into the office and you're asked about your grades. And if you explain your grades, there's a possibility she will not agree with your grades, she being Kim Heckman, which was my principal at Pershing Middle School. Personally, I've had a number of conversations with her detailing the rubrics, the manner in which they're graded, which she disagreed. I've been kept in meetings that would require me to get pulled out of classroom instructional time and roll over into another classroom of instruction where the students that were in the classroom were not receiving instruction until I left with a statement that supported what she really wanted. And although she would say, you know, I don't want you to change grades, they've already been graded. I've explained to you, and we're still in this conversation an hour and a half later. What more can I do? So I got to the point after 2.5 years, I'm tired. Tell me what you want me to do, because even though you're saying one thing, you're pressuring me into something else, and I'm getting negative write-up after negative write-up. So what is it? Because it feels like harassment, retaliation, and coercion.
Bob, your group found that 40 HISD high schools and middle schools earned either an F grade or a D grade. Is social promotion the only way that kids are actually moving through these schools?
I mean, it's interesting. After the Apollo 20 program started, I visited a number of these schools. They opened their doors. They were very pleasant about it. And we were able to look and see at what level some of these kids were working. And some of the kids were at 5th and 4th grade math. And so when you visit some of these schools and you see really the disservice to the kids that has happened over the course of their education, we need to be doing things a lot differently. You know, this is why we get excited when a reform superintendent comes in, whether it's in Houston, in Dallas, or in Brownsville, that things need to be done differently. And yes, there's going to be a lot of pressure to do those things differently and to have different results. Unfortunately, some of these things happen during this time, but we need the pressure of advocates and teachers and the media to all put their eyes on this. But most importantly, we need parents to pay attention, to not get excitable when a kid is left back in 1st or 2nd grade and say, not my child, but to understand that if we're doing those things early on, later on we don't need social promotion because we've done it at an appropriate age. So we see this stuff happening, but part of it is because we have this pressure for our schools to be of service to our children.
Dave, what should happen next in terms of investigating grade fixing in HISD? The message we're getting from the administration is that it was limited to Westbury High School, and that they've got some auditors going to a couple more campuses. What needs to happen?
Well, first of all, the trustees need to come out of their coma and actually start looking at what's happening in the district. The failure of leadership in HISD is the Board of Education. They're not questioning Greer. They're not demanding a thorough investigation. Richard Patton is a Greer appointee. He needs to be removed. He didn't do a good investigation at Reagan. Reagan teachers have already talked about that investigation and how they were pressured to say what HISD wanted to say. In a culture of paranoia and fear, doing an open, fair investigation, it's anathema. You can't really do it. So HISD teachers need to feel safe that they can come forward and report, but they have to then report on their principals, and the principals already have the mission to fire teachers. Greer thinks it's a badge of honor to fire teachers, which shows that the district's whole structure is rotten at the core.
We could talk about this all night, and I'm sure we'll talk again. I want to thank all of you for being here and sharing your insights. We'll have more of Making the Grade when we come back. Welcome back to Making the Grade. The voices you heard tonight believe the problem is real. and the practice of inflating grades on one campus or 100 erodes the potential of our children. Fox 26 invited HISD superintendent and 3 trustees to participate in this discussion. All declined. So far, evidence of grade inflation has emerged at 3 campuses. If grade pumping proves widespread, as critics charge, what remains to be answered is exactly why district leaders would condone social promotion. Critics contend there's a money trail to be followed. Speaking of funding, over the course of a child's schooling, taxpayers invest more than $100,000 in each education, which begs a final question. Do you believe the average HISD graduate has been prepared to succeed? That is, after all, the only metric that truly matters. Here's our pledge. Our news organization is fully committed to shining more light on this critical issue. Our kids' future depends on it. Thanks for joining us tonight for this Fox 26 News.
This newscast brought to you by Carpet Giant. Go to myfoxhouston.com for more information.